Pickin' with a piner, pickin' with a piner, pickin' with a piner, come pine with me. Pickin' with a piner, pickin' with a piner, pickin' with a piner, come pine along with me. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Pickin' with a Piner. Tonight, I have a very, very special guest with me. He is a long-time Richmond band guy. They've got a great band, and so tonight I just want to introduce to you Mr. Dickie Wood of the Atkinsons. He and the Atkinsons are a Richmond band. They've been together for over a decade. They're a group that melds roots country and rock music to form their own style of rambling swing rock and roll. This is a Richmond band that has they've released 2 full-length records. The last one they did was in 2011 called Mile Marker, and then in 2007 they released American Gothic. And so tonight, Dickie is my very special guest on this episode of Pickin' with a Piner. Welcome, Dickie. Thanks for being here.
Ooh, well, thanks for having me. I definitely appreciate it. Hey, could you hear me singing harmonies on Pickin' with a Piner?
I
Pickin' with a
can.
Piner.
So the funny thing is, we figured this out the hard way last time. We are for internet speed reasons, we're off a little bit. so
Right,
we
right.
so it's hard to play together. But anyway, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. Dickie, I thank you for being here. This is Pickin' with a Piner is supposed to be a way of us getting together, being able to hang out, play music for good people at home. And so thank you so much for being here. Let's start off with telling me how did the Atkinsons come to be? You've been playing music for a while now, I'm assuming, but you said over a decade. So how did the Atkinsons come to be?
Well, the whole thing kind of came together at an open mic night.
Really?
I was starting to play. Yeah, definitely. I've been a guitar player, ever since I was 15, for better or for worse. And I'd always played the sideman kind of role, solos, rhythm guitars, and harmonies. And at one point, I decided I just really wanted to go out and do it on my own. And the only way to really get your sea legs on is to go out to open mic nights. And that's kind of tough because everybody's watching. You're not hiding behind a drum set or a bass player. You're just singing your songs, right? And everybody's looking at you.
It's so funny. It's so funny, Dickie. That's exactly how Woody Woodworth and the Piners got started. It was exact same thing. Just getting up the courage to go out there and play in front of people and start singing my own music. That's exactly how I got started. So that's pretty awesome. Go keep going though.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, as it turns out, the person who was running the open mic night is Jeff Williams, and he's our mandolin player. So, and he and I just started playing together as sort of a little duo. And before you knew it, it became a band. And that's a story into itself, but it started at open mic with Jeff and I.
Wow. So your last name is Wood. Where does the Atkinsons come from?
Exactly. Good question. It's the same thing. It goes right back to open mic night, Again, we were all just trying not to be too nervous playing in front of people we didn't know. But as the nights wore on, you got to know people better and better. But one thing you really didn't know about anybody is like what they did or what their last name was. You just knew people. Jeff and I kind of elbowed our way into opening up for this band called the Expatriates. And they're like, well, sure, what's the name of your band? And we just kind of looked at each other and said, we don't really have a name.
Yeah.
So another open mic night friend of ours named Gary happened to be standing there. I asked Gary what his last name was. His last name is Atkinson. I said, Gary, that's a great last name. Would you mind too terribly if Jeff and I became the Atkinsons? He was all about it.
As simple as that.
Simple as that.
That's amazing. So tell me a little bit about the Richmond music scene back then. I mean, I Poe's Pub was a big deal and for open mic, and I know Carey Street Cafe is a big open mic night currently, and I've got friends that run Corey Axe runs the one over at Carey Street. But tell me a little bit about what that music scene was like, because a decade ago, the music scene in Richmond probably looked a little bit different than it is now. So what was that like?
It was different, and a big shout out to Corey. Awesome guy. He has a great open mic night. Love to see him when I can. Well, Jeff started this one at Matt's Village Pub, which essentially is right next to Tobacco Company, across the street from the Army. So yeah, it's long been since closed, but we were coming off like the 90s, and there was people not really sure what was going on. I mean, even alt country music hadn't become a thing. It was this weird little time when you were looking for something different to listen to. And I think the group of people that started coming to Matt's, maybe I'm biased, but there were a lot of talent there. And we feel like we started something new for Richmond. We were singing our own songs. We weren't doing covers. Everybody loves covers. Who doesn't love a cover? But we were all just trying to take our songs and present them to people and have fun at the same time and get better at the same time. Right. Whether that's any different than today, I don't know. I'm sure everybody's trying to get better, of course, but it was an odd time for music, right? And it was, we were like tweeners. I don't have a better way to put it.
Yeah. Jeff Williams says, "Hi guys." He just messaged.
Oh, I see him. I see the green man. Yeah, I'm looking at my cell phone, so I could barely see any pop-up. So thanks for telling me that.
Yeah. So I'll let you know as we get some things along here. But yeah, thanks for sharing that, Dickie. One of the questions, about that scene back then, I'm curious about, because it was a rise in the alt country Americana scene. And, ironically, you and I are doing this tonight. We were actually planning on, you were going to be a part of a show I was doing on Saturday called the River City Review. Now, the River City Review comes out of the Cap City Barn Dance. It's what comes out of that. I got inspired by looking at old posters that I saw that Wes did, and I started asking questions. And I wasn't playing out in Richmond back then. I was not that wasn't something I was doing at that time. I was probably in '95. I was probably in middle school. So I was also living in Charlotte, North Carolina. But Wes Freed was a huge part of bringing this scene that sort of spawned out of the Mud Helmet band practices that he was having. They would do sort of Americana style rehearsing, just all acoustic. And he's told me this story.
You didn't really know what that meant. You didn't even know what that meant. I remember seeing, I guess it was the Shiners was their first spinoff from Mud Helmet. Am I right when I say that?
Yep.
Saw them at Moon Dance Saloon. And just loved it. And I didn't really quite understand what I was hearing. It wasn't country and it wasn't rock, and it damn sure wasn't Mud Helmet.
Right.
But we loved it. It was great. It was a great time for that. Wes is awesome.
Well, I think, for me, I still see a lot of the echoes of what you all were doing and are still doing is very apparent in the Richmond music scene still. And so, for me, I feel very much a part of that now. And when I started looking at trying to build a community like you all had back then with the Shiners and what you all started, of course, I reached out to the folks that I knew that were doing that. I would talk to Wes. I was looking to find information out from Joe Wharf, and the Slack family, because Slack family was the house band of the time. So it's awesome that all came together at that point in time. And it was unique, and it still is, and I think in a lot of ways it still is unique. So thank you so much for being a part of that and telling us about it tonight. Before we get too far,
let me thank you for doing this. Yeah. Jamie and I put together with Jeff Williams as well. We had our own little concert series, and we did it for like 3.5 years. And I think it really brought musicians together, and that was sort of the key. When you have a bunch of gigging bands, they don't really get to see each other, much less get to know each other.
Yeah.
So for once a month, for 3.5 years, we brought 3 to 4 bands on the same stage and had the time of our lives.
Right.
And we made so many friends. And I really feel that kicked off a little scene within itself, and you're doing the same thing. And to me, on a much larger scale, although it's not as frequent, you got a lot going on, and I definitely appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I hope that we can keep doing that, because exactly what we're doing tonight is what I want to do on the bigger scale, which is continue to build community, connect with folks like Paulo Franco, who's watching us right now. He just said, "Hello, boys."
Is that Paulo?
Yeah.
Hey,
Paulo said hi. And then Bobby Waters just said, "Hi, Ricky. I see a little buddy." And then Benji Saunders, who is our host of the River City Review, he's on watching as well.
Yep. Very good.
But yeah, I mean, I want to ask some more questions about the Richmond
Sure.
music scene. Before we get too far, I want everybody to know that if you donate money to our tip jar, virtual tip jar tonight, um, it's going to go to me, but then I'm going to immediately donate it to Dot's back end. Dickie has asked that everything tonight that we can maybe raise by doing this go to Dot's back end, which is a lovely establishment over there on MacArthur. And I've been there many times, and so we want to support them as a local business. So you can go. I posted on the event page. You can go there and you can make a donation there, or you can send me a Venmo tip, and I'll make sure they get it. And if you don't have Venmo, I have PayPal, and I'll put that up there as well. I forgot to add my PayPal one, but I will put that up there as well. But that being said, thank you so much, Dickie. I would love for
Yep.
you to play us a tune if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all. This one's called You Could Go. It's off the Atkinson's second record called Mile Marker. I think I mumbled Mile Marker. I'll wait around. You go find yourself. I'll be mending fences. You'll be stepping out. I'll be keeping up with what we should be about. You could go, I could wait around. You could go, I could wait around. I'll hammer nails. Work out in the sun. You can't take it tomorrow. See how far it runs. You
Oh no. Dickie froze.
can't go, I could wait around. Have you seen a man in need and he's my intent? You must have missed the flowers that I sent. Everything that grows has got to come up from the ground. You could go, I could wait around. I've got a plan. First I'll wash my hands, log up all my fences, lay down on the land. We'll point my truck to the falling sun and put the hammer down. You could go, I could wait around. You could go, I could wait around. Have you seen a man in need at least my intent? You must have missed the flowers that I sent. Everything that grows has got to come up from the ground. You could go, I could wait around. You could go, I could wait around. You could go, I could wait around. All right.
Hey, thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah, you're
man.
welcome.
What was that?
Appreciate
What was that one called again?
Well, it's called You Could Go.
You Could Go.
You could go. And it's
So-
more like an accusation.
Yeah.
You know, it's more a relationship going bad, and the lady wants to take off, and he's like, well, I guess you could go, and I could wait around. I'm not really sure how that's supposed to work out.
Yeah.
So that's the idea behind the song.
Well, but I've got a bunch of questions I want to ask you about your songwriting process. So we'll
Sure,
get to that
sure.
in one second. But I want to finish what we were talking about. I want to finish what we were talking about the Richmond music scene and where it was, where it is today and where you see it going?
Huh. Well, I'd love for Richmond to become the next Seattle, right? Or the next Athens. I think we have enough talent to do that. I think we have to make a big noise. And there are plenty of new bands out there, or younger bands, I have to say, because we're all getting a little bit older, that are out there doing their best to make a lot of noise. It's a little bit different too nowadays. The younger guys can't even play at a bar. Where do the 17 and 18-year-olds play? When they can't even go into a bar if they're not 21. I mean, you got cool places like the Camel who let people come in and do day shows and afternoon shows. We got the talent. We just need the places for people to play.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is wonderful, and we need more of that. We need more showcases for Richmond because, again, I think we can make a very big noise.
Well, I think Richmond has an amazing set of talent, wonderful songwriters. I mean, I've in the last year, I've connected to so many talented songwriters just here in the Richmond community. And I'm not just talking about the big names that everybody knows. There's wonderful music scene here, both what people know and sort of what's underground and under the radar. There's a lot of groups here that do a lot more indie style music, like Space Bomb, which they're doing amazing things. There's some really, really great bands that are associated with that group, or Montrose Recording, White Star. There's some really great recording studios around here, but there's also a lot of folks that just people might not see because they're gigging at bars every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. And unless you walk into that bar, you don't know. And so I think what changed a lot of things from probably the time in those 90s or early thousands when you all were gigging out is social media, streaming music, the saturation of music getting on the interwebs. It used to be you were a local band and you just gigged out, and people figured out who you were that way. Now we have this massive reach and stretch, and oftentimes that can be a good and a bad thing.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I know back in our time, even before the Atkinsons, I've been in bands since I was 15 years old. People have to go out to see music, and you appreciated them coming out. Right now, sometimes it's almost too easy, and I think sometimes bands get taken for granted because it's so easily accessible.
Yeah.
Back in the day, if you want to go see a band, you did, and we loved it. We probably didn't make any money. We probably owed the bar by the end of the night, in all honesty, but we had the people out there. We had the faces, we had the butts in the seats. And I wonder if social media, as great as it can be for getting your name out there, does it, also kind of hinder people coming out to see you?
Sure.
When your music is right there, hey, you just go to Spotify. I don't even have to buy your record.
I think that's a huge part of it. And I think the thing you said something, you touched on something earlier when we were talking about the River City Review and the thing that you did back, when you all were starting and doing and creating this community, is building the community, because I play shows all the time and I miss out on connecting with the people I'm playing with, because you get in, you plug in, you play, and then boom, you're gone. And I think this is what is necessary in order to grow an actual community, is getting to know the names of the bands, of the actual players and people, and connecting.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And that's why
we saw it happen. It worked.
And that's why the dedicated open mic night folks are so incredible, because that is what that is. That is building community. Before we go any further, I want to take a moment to recognize our sponsors. This is a little bit of a commercial break. So if you're in a pinch, I recommend going and getting store brand toilet paper. This comes to you from your local store. This is you can found at Walmart. This is Walmart brand. It feels a lot like sandpaper, but in this time of need, I recommend going out and getting store brand toilet paper wherever you can find it available. So store brand paper, toilet paper, it comes to a place near you. So that's a little bit of word from our sponsor. Dickie, go ahead and play us another song for us if you don't mind. If you got one. I mean, I'm happy. I can play one too, but I'm happy to let you go ahead, and then I'll do one after this.
Hey, no problem at all.
Just for everyone's awareness, all the donations tonight, if you tip me through Venmo, or PayPal me at woodywoodworthmusic@gmail.com. Everything tonight, every gift you give will go towards Dot's back end. They have a GoFundMe page, and I'm going to make sure all that goes there. So thanks again for everybody tuning in. Kelly Waldrop, thanks. Good to see you. Ian Blackwood, good to see you as well. Benji, thanks for being on the line. I know Jamie's watching. Jamie Wood's watching, supporting her husband. And so thank you all for watching tonight. All right, Dickie, give us another song.
This one's called Headed Down the Road. Something was wrong. What was there did not belong. It shouldn't take me very long. I'm headed down the road. It had only been a week or so. I wasn't really getting time to go. I sat and stared out of my window. I'm headed down the road. Headed down the road. I'm headed out, I'm moving on, no need to wonder why. I'll do without the dance, a song of bang and it's goodbye. There won't be any help that can come to take with me when I go. It shouldn't be too long before I'm headed down the road. Couldn't hit me in the eye, wouldn't wait for my reply. It wasn't gonna be another try. I'm headed down the road. Didn't have that much to say. They look at me and then turn away. Well, see you another day. I'm headed down the road. Headed down the road. I'm headed out, I'm moving on, no need to wonder why. I'll do without the dance, a song I'm playing and it's goodbye. There won't be any bag of crap to take with me when I go. It shouldn't be too long before I'm headed down the road. Headed down the road. Headed down the road. I guess I'll see what all nobody knows. I'll do without the dance, a song I'm playing and it's goodbye. There won't be any bag of crap to take with me when I go. It shouldn't be too long before I'm headed down the road. Headed down the road. Headed down the road. I guess I'll see what all nobody knows. Woo! I hear James going, clap, clap,
Dickie,
clap, clap, clap.
awesome. Thank you. You got tons of people here tuning in, listening to you. You got Kaylin who said hello. Kaylin Wood, Leslie Kimball
I don't
said
think I
hello.
know Kaylin. I don't know who
Yeah,
that is.
the last name sounds familiar. You've got Sydney Walters, Saunders also said hello. So you got tons of people watching you. Thank you so much for being on here. Again, this is Woody Woodworth and Pickin with a Piner. And my special guest tonight is the Dickie Wood of the Atkinsons. And so thanks for being here. Tonight,
Yep.
all of our proceeds go, any tips go directly to Dot's back. So if you tip me, I'm going to send it straight to Dot's back. So thanks for doing that tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Dickie, let's talk a little bit about the writing process. Are you the writer in the band?
Yeah, I mean, predominantly. I mean, I think there's a cover on each record, and Jeff certainly writes himself. Jeff Williams, a mandolin player. Ultimately, the songs are mine. At least they came from me anyway, but as a band, they become ours. I mean, they're much better with the band playing them than I ever did by myself. But primarily, I've been the songwriter, yeah, for both records.
Awesome. That's really, really cool. What's your process like? I know it's different for everyone. No one has the same process. Some are very dedicated writers. They write every day. Um,
Yeah.
that's a hard thing to do. Some folks
Mhm.
just kind of sit around and wait for the song to come.
Right.
Writers like John Prine. John Prine was kind of like that. I read an article last night on Rolling Stone, and they were talking a little bit about his process. And the last record he put out, God rest his soul, Tree of Forgiveness, his wife had to literally send him off to a motel and forced him to write the record. And they said he brought in about 10 boxes of old notes that he had written, scribbled,
Right.
lyrics on.
Right.
So everybody has a little bit of a different process. What's your process like?
Well, I can really relate to the John Prine process, if that's such a thing. Sometimes, it's just so far in the back of my mind, uh, I, I'm not really thinking about it. For instance, we just moved, like we talked about earlier, and my head's in putting carpet down, working
Mm-hmm.
something in the back room, making sure the driveway's right. I mean, I didn't pick up my guitar for easily a month. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's kind of a lot for me. I mean, so I'm more of the mindset of I do it when I feel like it. I'm not the person who has to pick it up every day and try to be creative every day and try to have something to say every day.
Mm-hmm.
But but that's not really a process necessarily either. Um, I just I think my process is to grab a guitar and strum it and see if anything comes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's absolutely nothing there, and you play the same old chords time after time again, and sometimes you hit on this fun little thing. Whether it's a riff, whether it's a chord structure, whether it's this melodic thought. Sometimes it just comes and it stops you in your track and you go, I need to record that because I feel like that's something.
Yeah.
And I guess the process is you just kind of dig for stuff until you see the nuggets.
Yeah,
You know?
I love having an iPhone because I've got a little notepad. You can
Yeah.
just go straight there, write that idea down. You've got the voice memo. You can certainly
Yep.
go in and ask or say something and record it right away. So if you get a melody in your head, I often write free write on my way traveling and into work. I ride a bus, so I'm not driving,
Yeah.
but I ride a
Yep.
bus
Yep.
and to and from work. Not right now because we're all quarantined and working from home. But
Sure.
usually I'm constantly writing thoughts down, and I think you're right. A lot of times you kind of know when that thing hits, when that melody
Yep.
hits, when that
Yep.
lyric, that line, something that
Yep.
sticks. So, but it is different for everyone, and everyone has to find their own way in that process.
For sure.
My biggest thing is not getting frustrated. I can't admit to how many songs I've probably thrown away that I'm my greatest critic on. Like someone else probably would have kept it and said, "Hey, that's a great
Yeah.
song." Um,
Yeah.
but but I'm very critical of myself, and if I don't like it, I don't think other people will either. So
Yeah.
I know I've thrown away tons of songs.
Well, I have too, especially back in the younger days when you didn't really know what you were doing. Not that you really ever know what you're doing,
Yeah,
you just do it. But I made a promise to myself a while back to not finish a song. If
yeah,
Even if I didn't quite like it, see it all the way through. And if you don't ever use it, if nobody else ever hears it, well, that's fine. Could be that there's one part of it that you go back to and go, shoot, that little bridge part will work great in this new thing
yeah,
I'm working on. So
yeah,
I always try to finish it. But back to what you were saying about your iPhone, um, I love these smartphones. Instant recorder. I've got so many little stupid melodies or guitar riffs or chord structures that you go back to and you turn into songs. I tell you, the first one that I did here tonight, You Could Go, was one that I revisited, I bet you, a year and a half later.
Yeah.
Kind of looking for material for the second record. And it was just an E and a C and a G or something. It really was E, D, and A, right? Kind of mundane, but there was something about the rhythm of it that I liked. And there was a melody that started coming to my mind, and then out of the blue, You Could Go, I Could Wait Around, just popped in my head. I mean, really, it was as simple as that. It wasn't about anybody. The whole first record was absolutely 100% specific about people. Yeah. The second record was it was kind of freeing. You just wrote whatever you wanted to. You could actually make up stuff, pull stuff from your experiences and make a story out of it. And that was what the second record was more about. And that's how You Could Go came up. I had something on my phone, listened to it, liked it, pursued it. And it's one of my favorite songs just because it came out of nowhere and it was so much fun to write. It wasn't really any work. That's the funnest part, is when you got something good and it wasn't a lot of work and it just presents itself to you.
Jeff Williams says, "Say hi to Breezy for me." I don't know who Breezy is. That's not you, is it?
It's not Breezy. It's not Breezy.
Okay,
I want to call her a little.
I didn't know if you had a special nickname with your bandmates.
No. Breezy is an awesome little girl who is no longer a little girl. She's a young woman, okay. And she's come to see the Atkinsons ever since she was. I think her grandmother brought her when she was 3.
Yeah.
And well, I think 3 months. Jamie's is 3 months old.
Oh wow. Well, that's amazing. Yep. I'm with you though on the writing process. I feel like So when I say I throw songs away, if I feel like it's worth keeping something, whether it's just the line, I do the same thing. I keep it. It stays in a book. I'm more productive when I actually physically handwrite a lyric. It means more for some reason. I don't know. I remember it a little better. There's something that happens when I actually physically handwrite with a pencil or a pen on the paper. So I struggle with that. Having access to technology, I don't know that technology makes me a better songwriter though. But because if I'm going to and from, yes, you can capture that idea. But if I'm seriously sitting down to work on something, I have to have a pen and a paper out, and I have to be focused on that, and I have to be connected to whatever that muse is that's talking to me at the time. So.
Yeah, and really songwriting, I don't think technology has anything to do with it. I mean, I guess if you're doing multi-track stuff, you're doing progressive type, just music, and you're just adding layer upon layer, and you're writing that way, that's fine. But as a singer-songwriter, so to speak, as long as I have just a little voice recorder, I don't love my cell phone now, but I'll tell you, back in the day, it wasn't a cell phone. It was one of those little micro cassette players that you carried around with you, and I have tapes upon tapes upon tapes of that. And that's how I would do it. I know you were talking about how you like to write your lyrics, and I like to just say the same thing over and over and over and to beat it to death. I mean, Jamie's heard me say the same line over and over just to make sure that it feels exactly perfect before you move on to the next thing. Repetition.
God bless the women in our lives and for sticking with us.
I know.
I feel the same way. I do the same thing. You'll hear the same chord progression, the same lyric over and over and over again, trying to figure out where the song is going to go until that horse is dead and you've beaten it to death, and you realize it's not going anywhere. Well, speaking of songs, let me play a song for you, and we'll do a little bit of songwriting swapping here. So this is a song I wrote. It's on my first record. I don't play it enough out. I don't know why. I think it's a really decent song. This song's called 17, and I wrote this song about my brother who was working doing paving on the highway at the time. And so this song is called 17. It's about trying to have the courage to leave a town or find something better and new. So this song's called 17. It's off my first record, but. Thanks again for tuning in. This is Pickin with a Piner. We've got our special guest, Dickie Wood, tonight. I'm going to play a tune, and then he's going to play another tune for you. dancing in the street in the pouring rain, dressed to her knees on Main Street, wearing that dress your mother made. We were living on love at 17. She went to college that summer. I didn't have the grades enough to go. I settled for a job working for the state, paving these old country roads. Nobody cares when you're 17, running around wild and free, living on love, teenage dreams, 17. Friday nights, me and the boys go out. We tear up this town. Well, nothing's changed since you've been gone. I never made it out. Nobody cares when you're 17, running around wild and free, living on love and teenage dreams when you're 17. Cares when you're 17, running around wild and free, living on love and teenage dreams when you're 17.
All right. Jamie's wooing.
Oh, she's booing. Yeah, thanks, Jamie.
No.
Oh, whoops. Oh, where'd you go? Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I'm still getting used to this technology here.
That's okay.
But yeah, that was one that kind of just came. I wrote that song in literally about 20 minutes of a span. It just kind of all flowed out. I knew the melodies. I had the chorus.
Yeah.
I had a bridge. It's very rare that happens, but that would have been an example of a song that just kind of fell out of the sky and landed in my lap.
Sure. That's a great song. Sounds wonderful. It kind of reminds me of an Oklahoma feel. This red dirt rock thing.
Yeah, man.
And that's a compliment. I love that grit, and I love the storytelling. You know, you don't have to be this older country fellow to tell a story. You can be a younger fellow like you to tell a really good story and present it in such a good way. You got a good voice. I love it.
Well, thank you. And I keep reverting. I'm devastated by the loss of John Prine. I just have to say that over and over again.
Sure.
John Prine wrote Angel from Montgomery, which is about a middle-aged woman when he was like 24. So I'm a firm believer that you do not have to be a certain age to know the experience. You can have empathy and write a song regardless of if you're writing about an older person or being a younger person. The songwriter needs to take on the shape and the form of the characters that he's trying to portray or she's trying to portray.
You know, without a doubt. And also at the same time, I feel like you need to pull from your own experiences to pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
You really do. So there must have been something about that 24-year-old John Prine that made him put such a passionate song together from nothing.
Absolutely. We all as humans feel the same things, you know, whether it's loss or love or loneliness or happiness. I think that those are the things that we all experience, we all can connect to.
Yep.
So,
Sure.
if you're tuning in, this is Pickin with a Piner. We're with Dickie Wood of the longtime Richmond band, the Atkinsons. They're still doing their thing. Unfortunately, this COVID-19 has kind of put a damper on everything and all the things that we're doing as musicians and artists. And I wanted to have a little session where I could bring together people that I know and people that I play with, and we could still do this on a larger scale. So thanks for tuning in, everyone that's watching. Currently, we're going to take another small, short break for our sponsors. This one goes out tonight. We're sponsored by Potted Meat. This is your average potted meat. If you're quarantined or quarantined, survival is imminent. And if you do not consume potted meat, this is not for health purposes. This is strictly for survival. So this one goes out to corned beef potted meat. So that's a message from our sponsors. Dickie, you were telling us a lot about your writing. Hey, yeah, there we go.
I'm telling you what, you never know when you can't get to the stove.
Look, and the funny thing is, both of our sponsors go together. One leads to the other. So
one leads to the other.
Mark Henderson says hello. Hey, Mark, how y'all doing? How you doing?
Hey, Mark.
Mark's a great drummer. Benji Saunders also pointed out that there's also a ton of great comedians in Richmond. I think the whole entertainment live industry in Richmond is excellent. So don't want to forget him either. But Mark's a long time great drummer. Mark's helped me out a ton when I've needed a gig drummer. So thank you, Mark.
Super great guy. Super great guy.
Yep. So with the writing process, is there anything you're working on new currently, or you do you write every day, or is it like you said, it comes when it goes?
Yeah, I don't write every day. I feel like though every time I do pick up the guitar, there's just something there, and I'll record it. And the worst part about being lazy, as I am, is going back to those recordings. I'll put melodies down, I'll put chord schemes down, even some lyrics down, and then you feel like you're progressing, but then you never go back. You just work on something else. But to answer your question right now, am I actively writing, trying to put a new record together? Not immediately. However, Dan Sessler and I have gotten together, and we've got a good handful of pretty decent ideas, and the Atkinsons really do plan on recording something before the end of the year. We would love to have, if nothing else, but an EP. It'd be awesome if it was a full-length record, but like we were talking about, I don't write every day. I just kind of write when it comes up, and I have been lazy about it here lately. Yeah. And the intention is to get something going, to take this downtime and turn it into a positive downtime. Mm-hmm. Be productive with it.
We got a question from Mackenzie. He's from down in the Southern Virginia area, right before North Carolina border. He comes to my shows. Great guy, just had a baby. But he asked the question: what is the hardest process or what is the hardest process of the songwriting process? So, I would say for me, it's finishing. It's finishing what you started. That's the hardest part of the songwriting process. It's taking something and starting it and finishing it. That's what I would say. But do you have anything to add there?
It's the same thing. It's like chasing shiny things. There's something shiny. Oh, I'm going for there's something else shiny, and you go for it. It is hard to finish it. It's going to start to finish and really make it a true product. Not that it's a product. Music really isn't a product, but it is becoming a product, and probably always has been. But for me and for guys like you, we're just expressing ourselves, and then people can do whatever they want to with it. But yeah, the hardest part is finishing. The funnest part is the initial creation of something for me. And I can't speak for everybody, but just the chord scheme that excites you, or the guitar riff that excites you, or the lyric or the melody that excites you. That's the artistic part, where you don't know where it came from and you chase it around for a while. And then before you know it, sometimes you find yourself being a craftsman, trying to take that idea and put a nail in it. And sometimes you just become a laborer. You're just like, oh, I just really need to finish this, and I'm gonna put some words together, and it's gonna be good. And the funnest part for me is the initial beginning of the song. And then
the
the rest,
idea.
becomes like a labor of love,
Yeah.
and really to your point, it's about finishing it. Then you find another thing that's just as shiny and you chase that for a little while.
Well, I think, and that's why sitting down with pen and paper is so important to me, because I get these shiny ideas when I'm traveling, commuting, and I hear a
Yep.
melody or I think of a lyric. It's really taking the time to sit down and put effort and focus and not be distracted by what's on TV or what's on the news or
Yeah.
what's on Facebook or
Yeah.
Instagram. And so really taking time to pour that passion into the song. And another challenge that I have, Dickie, and maybe you have the same thing, is I'm trying to progress someone through a song, whether it be a story song or just something that keeps bringing you back to the chorus that evokes the same emotion and feeling. It's knowing where to take the next step. And I think sometimes that can be challenging. After you come out of it, maybe you got a really great first verse and a chorus, and then you try to go into the next movement of the song. What is the next box you're trying to fill as a writer? What's the next emotion you're trying to evoke? I think sometimes it's hard because I narrow down on that first part, the first verse, or maybe I write the second verse first, but it's just getting sucked into whatever that idea is, and then not being able to look outside of that first idea. So I don't know if you ever have that challenge or experience that at all.
Well, yeah, actually, and it also depends on how you kick the song off. For example, Watertown, I guess it's the second song on the first record. Um, it was very specific what had to be said because we were trying to move from song one to song three. And you had just a very distinct parameters. So I knew what I was going to say. The words were essentially already there, but not written. It was more about, how the chords go and how the melody work and how did you get to a chorus in a musical kind of way. I knew what I was going to say. The words weren't really written, but I knew how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are other songs that almost, back to You Could Go, that started out as a non-idea. It was just some chords that I liked over some melodies that seemed pretty neat. And then, wrote the first verse. I'm like, well, that's awesome. But what happens next? Because this wasn't an idea. This wasn't a concept. This is just kind of free flow songwriting. So what I tend to do as a writer, usually the first verse is very specific.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'll take the second verse is maybe do a reflection. Okay, I just said something. So the second verse is, why did I say that? So I might go backwards to lay the groundwork for verse number 3. Not that it's always got to be verse 1, verse 2, verse 3 with chorus and possibly a bridge thrown in. But I do know when I write a verse and I feel like I can't move on to the next one, I'll look backwards. And I find a lot of stuff looking backwards.
That makes a ton of sense, and that's a good method. I don't think I've used that one before, so I might take your idea there. So thanks for sharing
Go
that.
for it.
I will. I do get a lot of influence from other writers. I listen to how other people write, and for me, that's helpful. I try to go out and find really great songwriters and hear what they're doing or how they're doing it. I listen to a ton of podcasts, and so I am super interested in how people get to that final product. One other thing that's really hard as a songwriter is having what is that baby product, which is just lyrics on paper, and then never feeling like it's truly finished. And the first time I ever felt like a song was truly finished was when I recorded it. It was stamped and pressed and done, and now I have that record that's out on social media, on the web, or physical copies. And to me, that was the finished product. So I finished songs, but to me, I didn't get satisfaction from finishing the song until I recorded that song. But
recording's a whole nother dynamic of songwriting, isn't it? I tell you, I get frustrated with recording because I never feel like I'm representing the song as best as I can.
100%. I'm in total agreement with you on that.
So I find myself being very frustrated. Where I find the product's finished is when you walk into the band room and everybody's got their parts put together and you play from start to finish and you look at each other and go, shit, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
To me, it's finished. And then when you go to record it, it can take on a whole new meaning. It can be difficult. You know what you want, maybe you don't know what you want, but you know what you don't want. And
It can be
sometimes you see a
scary.
whole lot
It
of
can
what you
be
don't want. Yes,
it can
right.
be
That's
scary
right.
when you have this thing that you created and then you give it off
Yep.
to other people to have their influence on it, and then it goes in a different direction. Totally with you. For
Yeah.
me, I mean, I've written a lot of songs over the course of my life. I started writing very early. Around
Yeah.
13, I started making rhymes in my head or hearing
Yeah.
melodies in the
Yep.
word phrasing, and
Yep.
hearing
Yep.
songs that were just naturally there. So I
Yeah.
started picking up a guitar around 13 and never cared to really learn guitar, songs on guitar. Just wanted to write. How about you? How early did you start writing?
Well, I bet you I was 13, 14. You know, I remember before I even could play guitar, really even play an instrument, spending time in my grandmother's house, and there was a small little piano there, and I can't play piano. I can't play piano to this very day, but I would just sit there for hours and just plank on it,
Hmm.
make up little melodies, and hum along with them. And my grandmother was always so encouraging. Oh, Dickie, that's really great. You know, it probably sucked, and it doesn't really matter, but I love to do it. So probably the first song I ever wrote, I was probably 14. And I'm sure it wasn't very good, and I don't even remember how it went. But ever since then, I would write songs. And I just remember the decades going by, you know, what's popular at the time. And sometimes you find yourself trying to scoot right along, and sometimes you find yourself just sick of what's going on. You do something a little bit different. But my first song, like I said, was 14, and I think my first good song was 25.
Yeah, I feel that way. I mean, I think you grow though as a person, and like
Yeah,
you said earlier, your life experiences tend to start molding you as a writer, and
yeah,
so you reach a maturity level. And I
yep,
certainly was not a good songwriter at 13. I wasn't a
right,
good songwriter at 18. There's a
yep,
couple songs I wrote at 21 that I started moving into a place where the song was making sense.
yep,
It was a
yep,
finished product. It touched other people, and I mean, I measure whether a song is good or not based on reaction of other people, and that's why when we said earlier, open mic night is such a great venue to express or experience new material.
yep. It is. It
Because
is.
but you get some feedback through that. So if you're out there and you're trying to be a songwriter or trying to write songs, I totally recommend trying to hit up your local mic night when we all get back to normalcy, whenever that is. And until then, you can join us on Picking with a Piner. And if you want to be a part of this podcast live stream slash uh, get together, then just ping me, hit me up on social media. I'd love to have you on. Tonight we're talking to Dickie Wood of the band the Atkinsons, who were a huge part of bringing Americana slash alt country, their own meld of that country rock and roll to the Richmond music scene, and they've been doing it for a long time. Dickie, someone just said hi to you. Oh, Brian Phones just said hello. Uh,
Bonesy. What's up,
yeah.
Brian?
Um, and so anyway, yeah. So I am. I think there's something to learn every day though when it comes to songwriting. I don't know the answers. I don't have all the answers. Don't shit
Right.
that works last week isn't working next week for me. So I think it's
That's
just
the
you're
truth.
constantly evolving into it, and what I think is good, oftentimes then later on is not. So I think you just got to
Yep.
keep doing it. I think that's the key. I think the trick is just do it. So would you mind playing another song for us?
Oh, no, it'd be great.
Please. We've done a lot of talking, and this has been a very
Yeah,
enjoyable conversation. Um, but I want you to be able to share your music. So go ahead and play us another tune if you don't mind.
absolutely. Gonna get a drink of water real quick.
Warder. You're not from Richmond unless you say Warder.
Water. It's gonna be the first song off the first Atkinson's record. So a lot of first. My first time streaming anything. So it's first, first,
Awesome.
first.
Awesome.
It's called Caroline. It was a sticky summer night, one night like we always have until the fall. The The moon was high up in the sky, the wheat was still, there was no wind at all. From a rental house there came a sound so loud as if to drag up the night. There was a neighbor on the telephone, and the boy tried not to cry. Well, the boy stood and watched his daddy as he yelled and crisscrossed the yard. Then he stood and watched mom screaming something too far. Well, they put the handcuffs on and in there, accusing away, considered up to jail. With daddy from the front porch with his middle finger bit her finger. Caroline, don't know how you do it. Caroline, you put your worst into it. Caroline, I've been where you go, but I'm a stranger to your road. His daddy came inside and said, get to your room and get out into bed. Don't worry, trying to sleep tonight, your mama ain't right in the head. The boy lay wide awake, too tired to cry, too scared to even sleep away. His daddy spent the night with table TV, cigarettes, and fish and drinks. Caroline, don't know how you do it. Caroline, you put your worst into it. Caroline, I've been where you go, but I'm a stranger to you. All through the night she began fighting, even tried to spit on the guard. Everything but then the liquor wouldn't still be hitting so hard. No, hitting so hard. There was a time when I was young, I was just a little boy too. My mom was not the best at picking into trying to fill a daddy's. I watched a child grow up and down, man, is where that little boy stood. I watched a woman try worse than still despite herself, she did something. Caroline, don't know how you do it. Caroline, you put your worst into it. Caroline, I've been where you go, but I'm a stranger to you. Caroline, Caroline, Caroline.
Awesome, man. Thank you for sharing. That's amazing. If you're tuning in, we're coming up on the hour here where we've been hanging out with Dickie Wood of the great band from Richmond, the Atkinsons. They were scheduled to play a show with me and my band, Woody Woodworth and the Piners, this Saturday. We were doing an event with multiple bands, multiple alt country, rock and roll, country, hillbilly, honky tonk, bluegrass bands like the Atkinsons were going to join us. We had on the bill the fellows from Horsehead were on that bill. Mackenzie Rourke and her band, Pistol Sister, was on that bill, and that's been postponed. But we had tons of great acts, and we're going to continue to do that whenever we get back to real life. Right now, we're living in the virtual world, but we want to continue to connect with you. So thank you for hanging out with us with Pickin with a Piner. This is an attempt to connect musically, both with really talented people that are doing music as much as they can on a daily basis, and then the folks that love listening to it. And that's really what this is all about. We want to know more about the artists that make up the band, and how they write songs, and how they get inspired. And so tonight we're talking with Dickie Wood of the Atkinsons. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. This has been a really cool experience. I hope you've had a good time.
Oh, I've had a great time. It's great just to sort of be out there in a way. We're all in our house right now. I'm not out there at all, but I feel like, we're sitting at Hardywood. I feel like we're at Post Pub. It's just nice to have a guitar and singing out loud and talking with friends. And I'm glad so many people tuned in. And, please donate to Dots Back. Everybody can use a little bit of help.
Please, absolutely. The tip jar tonight is going to Dots Back in the wait staff there. So there is a GoFundMe page which is listed on the event site that I created for this event. You can go there and donate directly to Dots Back GoFundMe, or you can shoot me a Venmo, and I will 100% make sure that money gets sent over to Dots Back. Dots Back is a great establishment that's been there forever. It's a wonderful lunch, breakfast, dinner spot. It's a Richmond staple. And so thanks, Dickie, for making that the thing we're donating to tonight. So I really appreciate that.
Sure.
I love Dots Back. Here's a very interesting story. You know the theater right next to Dots Back?
I do. So, and I have my own story. You go ahead.
All right. Well, my story might be your story. So apparently, when I was putting together the River City Review, we were basing it off of both the Cap City Barn Dance, which was established in the mid-'90s with the greats like Wes Freed, and the Drive-By Truckers would come up to it. The Shiners would play it, which was Wes's band. And then you'd also have the Slack Family Bluegrass Band would play it. But there's tons of really great bands that would come up and play the Cap City. Well, before that, you had the Old Dominion Barn Dance, and the Old Dominion Barn Dance was held in a couple of old schools around the area. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but the Carter family lived right around the way from MacArthur back then. And actually, what I was told by someone in Richmond, so I can't say whether this is true or false, so just take my word for it, and if it's false, then forgive me for it. But I heard that the old staging from the old barn dance is actually in the theater next to Dots Back, and they actually had a barn dance there in the past. So good little bit of Richmond history there. What's your story?
Well, it's not as much a story as a statement. Everything you said is true. I mean, there used to be an old barn dance style show there. Our drummer, Chris Crawl, and his wife got married there.
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
It was absolutely beautiful. And the back of the stage still had the old Prince of, I want to say, horses and Western type feel. Upstairs, it was a very small club, and it really just wasn't kept up anymore. Very dusty, but I think the Shriners would use it 4 times a year. There was all kinds of Shriner stuff upstairs.
Gotcha.
But it was a rainy day, and Annika and Chris got married. We realized we didn't have enough alcohol for everybody who decided to come. I was running back up and down from that little convenience store across from where the old Shenanigans used to be, bringing more beer back and more beer back. We had a really good time that day at that wedding.
That's awesome. Right, that MacArthur, I remember going and seeing the Slack Family Bluegrass used to play right there across the street of Shenanigans. I used to go there. When I first started playing music out in Richmond, it was bluegrass. And it was in a little small 4-piece bluegrass band. We played little small coffee shops, but that's when my writing really started to feel like it was coming together. And that was around that age, 21 through about 24. I was like, man, I can do this. I want to do this. I want more. At the time, the bluegrass band didn't want to add drums because then we'd be alt country, but that's where I wanted to go. And God dang it, that's where we are now. So I have a rock and roll country band. Dickie, I'm going to play one more song, and then I'm going to ask you to close us out with a song. This is a song that I wrote when I was playing bluegrass music. It's a murder ballad, ironically, but it's a song that I just released this past year. We put it out. I actually made a vinyl, 7-inch vinyl. We did an A and a B side, and it was one of the best processes I've ever gone through in my life. both recording it and actually taking the recording and having it mixed and mastered and then turned into a vinyl, which is sitting in Harrisonburg right now. At some point I gotta go pick it up, but I've got these songs that I recorded over the course of the last summer, and so this is one of those songs. It's called Cherokee Mag. Maggie was an Irish rose, one half Cherokee. She came down from the Blackfoot Hills with a banjo on her knee. Her face was rough like leather, her hands were weathered too. A whiskey jug in one hand and a bag of tobacco chew. Well, Maggie, with your hair like fire, Maggie, with your eyes so green. She came down from the Blackfoot Hills to sell bootleg whiskey. She was meaner than a rattlesnake, as tough as mountain lead. Any man that crossed her wrong, she'd kill him sure as dead. Well, Maggie like the queen of diamonds, Maggie like the ace of spades. Maggie with your wild eyes shining brighter than a summer day. Well, Maggie with your hair like fire, Maggie with your eyes so green. She came down from the Blackfoot Hills to sell bootleg whiskey. But she dressed in English rags and rode a Cherokee red. She brewed Irish whiskey from a rundown mountain shed. Well, wild-eyed Maggie found her lover lying in another's bed. She killed him with a fit of rage with 2 shots to the head. Well, Maggie with your hair like fire, Maggie with your eyes so green. She came down from the Blackfoot Hills to sell bootleg whiskey. So if you're ever out wandering through the pines and you see the ghost of Maggie walking by the moonlight, she's pining for love she had buried in them hills. 'Cause what goes up the mountain, it don't ever come down again. Hey, Maggie with your hair like fire, Maggie with your eyes so green. She came down from the Blackfoot Hills to sell bootleg whiskey. Yeah, Maggie with your hair like fire, Maggie with your eyes so green. She came down from the Blackfoot Hills to sell bootleg whiskey.
Yes, indeed. That's a great song.
Thank
That's
you.
a great
Thank
song.
you. Yeah, that
You're
was
very
one of the
welcome.
ones. That was one of the one. Thank you. That was one of the ones I was telling you about that I wrote. It was one of those ones that I wrote I wrote back when I was around 22 years old, 23, and
Yeah.
it actually had a different title. The lyrics were a little bit different, but it took
Yes.
me about 10 years to finish that song, and I finally did, and I'm very, very proud I was able to do that, and then we released it this year. So thank you, and thanks for listening, everybody. Dickie, this has been a blast, man. Thank you so much for being a part of this Picking with a Piner, man. I hope you've had fun.
I have had fun, and I really appreciate you asking. And you ask me again, I'll come back and we'll talk more stuff.
Hell
Doesn't
yeah, we'll
matter.
do it. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah.
But before we go, what's up next for the Atkinsons? What are after we get through this pandemic, and we get back to some sort of normalcy? I hope I can encourage you to start that effort now to write that next Atkinsons record, because I would love to hear it. So so maybe that's in the stars for you. What do y'all have planned?
Well, I hope
Any
a new
ideas?
record's in the stars. I hope a new record's in the stars for sure. But right now, as far as even booking, you can't even hardly book anything. Nobody wants to commit. You can actually get your name on the board, but then all of a sudden you're not anymore.
We have May and June gigs.
We have May and June gigs that could very possibly be more than likely be canceled. So as far as musically the Atkinsons go, I don't know. I would just love to be able to get together with the guys and play some music.
Yeah,
that would be great. Certainly, like I said, we have gigs, but I just want to get back together with the guys and the gals, of course.
No, that is probably on the first thing that I want to do is reconnect with my band and just sit and play music. I don't know if everybody knows what that feeling is like, but I think there's some things that are kind of like it. But for me, it's that communal feeling, the way we're interacting right now. It's getting to know someone else. It's sharing your love and your passion, and that's what I love about being in a band. So I am 100% in agreement with you. That is one of the first things I want to do is just spend some time with the fellas and play these songs again. So I agree. And then you're right. It is hard to look beyond the next couple of months. It's a hard thing. So I hope everyone out there is doing okay and staying safe. And thank you for tuning in to Pickin with a Piner. We had the wonderful Dickie Wood on tonight, and it's funny. Our first 3 guests so far. It's been me. I'm the host, Woody Woodworth. So there's a lot of wood there. But was Ian Blackwood, and then we've also had Johnny Wood, who you might realize that you're related to him. I am related to him. I'm related to some woods that come They come out of just west of Charlottesville in Greene County. So
Greene County, that's where you're from.
That's where my family's from.
Well, shit, man, we might be related. We might have just figured out right now that we're related.
Greene County,
So my great grandmother, her name was Mary Wood. And so Johnny Wood, who's my bass player in my band, we met on Craigslist. I told this story last week, so I don't want to bore people with it again. But we found out that my great grandmother and his great grandfather were brother and sister or something. It's a weird. Oh no, was his great aunt. Yeah, so it's a weird connection. But I met him on Craigslist, and come to find out we're related from the same holler in Greene County. So my family's from Bacon Holler, if you're familiar with the Greene County area. But
not as much. My grandmother was Maggie Ray.
Right.
And married a Wood.
Father was Wood from Nelson County.
And my father was a Wood from Nelson County. My grandmother has fiery red hair and green eyes. So I feel like you wrote that song about her.
Yeah, well, my family. So my family, there's some redheads up there in the mountains, and I'm assuming they're from Irish descent somewhere, and they just settled in the hills and hollers that felt more like home, I guess, to them. So, but that's awesome, man. We might even be related. Who knows? But yeah, that's awesome, man. So we both got a little bit of that backwoods blood in us. It sounds.
We definitely do.
Yeah, that Appalachian storytelling, man. That's where I think a lot of this comes from for me, is that tradition of storytelling and songwriting, and passing along information through the song. And man, Virginia's got a ton of that history there, and we could spend a whole another hour talking about that. But I want to close out the night. Thank you, Dickie, so much for being on this with me, Picking with a Piner. Can you give us one more song and take us home, and we'll call it a night?
Sure. Well, this is called Out of Time. Sometimes you can make a mind forget what it knows. But I was reminded by my car radio. I thought we had time to do it all, to do every single thing just once. her today. As I drove, as I drove. Well, people come and people go, it happens all the time. But every day right there you stay in the back of my mind. I thought we had time to do it all, to do every single thing just once. Wasn't me or how I seem or who I'll never be. Was it more? Was it more? Once again I will begin to drink myself to sleep. You know that is harder when your world is incomplete. I thought we had time to do it all, to do every single thing just once. I'll be waking up on the floor again in the clothes I was wearing the night before, the night before, the night before, the night before. Big finish.
Awesome. If you're just tuning in or you're late to the show, that's Dickie Wood playing us an original tune, Out of Time. I think I got that right. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
Awesome.
That's right.
And you've tuned in to Pickin with a Piner. That is all we have for tonight. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Please go and donate to Dots Back In if you can. There's a tip jar here. If you Venmo me or PayPal me, I will make sure Dots Back gets that. And everything that we do tonight is for that cause. So please make sure if you feel it in your heart to do so, shoot it our way. Jamie, I believe, just posted the link in the browser there, so you can do it, or in the chat there, so you can go there yourself and donate. So please support local folks who are struggling right now. And thanks again for tuning in. I'm Woody Woodworth, and this has been Pickin with a Piner. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're just going to continue to try to connect through music, talk about what we love, our passions, and how we write songs. And that's what it's all about. So thanks for pining with us tonight. Thanks, Dickie Wood, for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me. I had a great time. Come back anytime.
We'll get you on again. Thank y'all. Have a good evening. Pickin with a
Bye,
Piner.
everybody.
Pickin with a Piner. Pickin with a Piner. Come pick with me. Pickin with a Piner. Pickin with a Piner. Pickin with a Piner. Come sing a song with me. Pickin with a Piner. Pickin with a Piner. Pickin with a Piner. Come pine along with me. Thank you. That's a wrap. We'll see you again next time on Pickin with a Piner. See y'all.
Bye.